Welcome to Big O 2019. It is our Saturday game on 6 p.m. game on Track 1. I'm Biggie Talls here with Biggie Talls. We may be having somebody else join me later, but for right now, you get to listen to my dulcet tones as we talk about this important game for both of these teams. We've got Bridgetown Roller Derby versus the Vancouver Murder. You'll see Bridgetown is in gray and Vancouver is in black and red. So, yep, there's the colors. All right, this game is about to begin. We're a minute and a half out or so. I'm going to read off the roster for Bridgetown Roller Derby. We've got 022 Zeus on the Loose, 101 Freak Style, 103 Loose Wheel, 12 Tommy Gunn, 142 Jamaican Psycho, 1939 Bruce Payne, 23 Genghis Tom, 31 Ramrod, 43 Craftbeard, 440 Captain Obvious, 5 Eldorado, 512 Cosmo Damage, 565 Hamtrack, 7 Ostentatious, 82 Topher Griffin. For the Vancouver Murder, we have 01 Big Sexy, 10 Mrs. Testosterone, 110 Mr. Testosterone, 121 Gravy Graves, 14 Russian, 17 Zimmer, 1936 Harassin Ford, 256 Morrison, 31 Bruceberry Pie, 338 Flustercluck, 37 Stark, 4 Stand Aside, 41 Rogers, 56 Iron Fist, and 8 Lodge. Whew, that's everybody there. All right, this is a packed game in the house here. You can't see it because the cameras are at the same side as the audience, but imagine that little upper right-hand corner. It just keeps going around the whole way. We're just mere seconds from this first jam here. Looks like we've started with Mr. Testosterone, number 110, lining up alongside number 82, Topher Griffin at the Eugene Weekly Jammer line. Also some bookends there of two Bridgetown players. That's 142 Jamaican Psycho and 31 Ramrod. Not sure what the plan is there, but I'm sure they've got one. At this point, we are waiting for the skating officials to take the track. I'm not sure exactly what minor details going on here. If I find out more, I will share it with you. In the meanwhile, you can look at this lovely set of humans out here on the track, ready to start playing roller derby, sharing a little bit of camaraderie before they start battling to put points up on the board. Now, both of these teams obviously having faced each other not too long ago. I saw them last at the MRDA championships last year. I hope I did. If I'm getting that wrong, tell me on Twitter. I won't see it because I'm not actually on Twitter, but everybody else will see it, and you'll know how wrong I am. So I'm going to go ahead and go through our list of officials here. Skating officials, we've got Nitsugi, Darth Bling, Jersey, Lauren Order, Wookie Mistake, Candyman, and Beverly Crusher. Let's see, that's 7. Then we have Spike, Connie, Geoknitter, Chirofracture, Flourish and Blocks, Doof Warrior, Twerk Mama, Tumble Tina, Read D Rules, Tuck and Roll, and D Baggins. Okay, I do see that the skating officials have taken the track. You can see one up there in the upper left corner of your screen, also next to the jam timer. So we are mere moments from beginning this game. That rolling whistle means we are a mere seconds from starting. Both of those bookends coming up and everybody else coming back to join on the Eugene Weekly Jammer line. Jam starts out heavy juking already, moment to moment. Oh, my goodness. Mr. Testosterone pushing over one fellow murder player, getting out just behind of Topher Griffin. Topher Griffin taking the lead. First lead of the game. Now this was a quick hit it and quit it. Looks like it's 2 points to 0. Putting the horns on, taking first blood to Bridgetown. Now that's the sort of precision quick jam you expect from these teams. Both of these teams highly ranked in the MRDA, both full of very capable players, both with coaches that put them through their paces to to really present a unified front out there on the floor. Again, all lining up by the Eugene Weekly Jammer line. We have Freak Style against Lodge. Coming into turn one, Lodge down on the ground, jumps through, does not quite make it. Lodge seems to have the track awareness to know, hey, I don't want to cut this. I'm going to go to the back, do this all again. But it's not as if Freakstyle is having an easier time. Freakstyle's facing 3 of the Vancouver skaters up there at the front. Gets sent out of bounds, earns lead on the way out of bounds, then ends up passing a blocker who goes out of bounds themselves. So strange little situation. Makes total sense if you see it in sequence. Lead, but didn't pass somebody. Now, Freakstyle puts up 4 points on the board, looks back to the bench. Bench says, yep, go ahead and call it off, calls it off. That makes it 6-0 in favor of the Menace. Now remember, when you're going to tell an announcer that they're wrong, make sure to use hashtag BigO2019. If you use hashtag BigO2019, everybody can see what you're talking about. They can see your pictures. They can see that you're here. And you can get in a conversation about the Big O 2019. Okay, into another jam. We got Ostentatious for Bridgetown, Stark for the Vancouver Murder. Ostentatious, a relatively recent primary jammer for the Menace. Definitely been a force to be reckoned with over the last few games that I've seen Austin in. You can see Austin's getting held down by a pair of Vancouver blockers at the back. Number 4-1 Rogers and number 0-1 Big Sexy. Just absolutely grinding Austin to a halt there, taking away all the momentum. Both teams were down 1 blocker. They each had 1 blocker and they hit this penalty box, and both those blockers have come back out, so they're now at full strength. I hear a couple of whistles there, and it appears Vancouver's quickly losing a player back to the penalty box, and that looks like number 4, Stand Aside. With a 4-3 pack advantage, Ostentatious makes it out in the front, gets lead jammer. Took almost a minute of the jam. We're talking like 52 seconds in order to make that lead happen. So it's a highly fought lead. But then Ostentatious comes around and passes everybody, putting 4 points on the board. Meanwhile, Stark making it out, not your lead jammer. Stark coming back around, getting within about 3 strides of the back of the pack before Ostentatious calls it off. Picks up 2 more points, makes that a 6-point jam, doubling Bridgetown's score. Biggest jam so far. I'll probably say that a few more times because both of these teams know how to put points on the board. Next 2 jammers, we've got Craftbeard up for the Bridgetown Menace. Then there's 338 Flustercluck up for the Vancouver Murder. Lead going to Craftbeard up there on the far side of the track in the straightaway, just coming out of turn 2. Craftbeard coming in hot and getting a back block, sending one of the Vancouver blockers just right down to the track. Flustercluck is now out, not lead. Nice clean pass. This is going to be a power jam for Vancouver. Flustercluck down in the middle of turns 3 and 4, but then facing off against one last Bridgetown blocker. That looked like 142 Jamaican Psycho. Oh no, it's actually 1939 Bruce Payne. Flustercluck getting sent to the infield by Bruce Payne, but Bruce Payne goes out of bounds, so no cut there when he comes right back in. Zeus on the loose also sending Flustercluck to the infield, but again, following Flustercluck out. So, both of those presenting no problem for coming back onto the track. Craftbeard now putting 4 points on the board. Some of those points earned after coming straight out of the box. Flustercluck has put 7 on so far and just picks up, looks like 4 more. Going to 11 there on the board. So this jam goes to 11 at the minimum. Makes it louder than any previous jam for the Vancouver Murder. In fact, Flustercluck has put every point on the board so far for the Murder. Flustercluck hit to the infield, takes a look around. There's only about 15 seconds on, so this is probably the last pass for both of these jammers. In fact, now with 5 seconds, it's definitely the last pass for both of these jammers. Jam finishes up. Let's see what last points come in there. I'm seeing 4 more held up. That looks like for each team. So this ultimately ends up being a 15-12 Jam in favor of Vancouver Murder. Cluster Cluck putting 15 points on the board for the Murder. Score now 24 Bridgetown, 15 Murder. With just under 24 minutes remaining in the first period. You see our 2 jammers line up. That's number 8-2 for the Bridgetown Menace. That's Topher Griffin, and 1-1-0 Mr. Testosterone for the Murder. Topher Griffin hitting Mr. T out of bounds and then running back on the track. Looks like they're trying to swallow Mr. T back into the front of the pack. Let's see if Mr. T takes the bait. Well, Mr. T does, but Topher does not seem to want to get into the pack himself. So comes back around. Really, it just took about 20 seconds off of the clock. Didn't change anything about the overall layout. And in fact, Mr. Testosterone picks up lead jammer coming out of turn 1. Getting the finger pointed at Mr. T. Topher Griffin now out of the pack. Mr. T, having completed a scoring pass with lead, makes the call off. Let's see if that timing works. And I see 2 points up in the air there for Topher Griffin. So that puts 2 on the board for Bridgetown, makes this a 4-2 Jam in favor of Vancouver Murder. Score now 26-19. Seen a stoppage there for an official timeout. Saw the signal for that, so we'll take a second to talk more about Hit This. Not only is Hit This our penalty box sponsor, but Hit This Derby gear has everything you need to get rolling, from skates to protective gear and unmatched service for all of your derby needs. Before you hit the track, Hit This. Oh, it looks like there was also a points change, so that OT there may have been to adjust points, but I saw the signal there from the jammer ref. Have not seen any adjustment on the scoreboard, so not sure exactly what's up there. Again, if I find out more information, I'll let you know. Meanwhile, the jam has restarted. Topher Griffin and Stark out jamming. Topher Griffin is sitting in the box. Stark has picked up lead fairly quickly into the jam. There are 2 Bridgetown blockers in the Hit This penalty box, so Stark is having a little bit easier of a time getting through. Has already put 4 points up, even though there were less than 30 seconds into the jam. Has now put another 4 points up, so we have 8 points up so far for Stark. That is a lead change. We now have 27-26 in favor of the Murder. So that is the Murder's first lead in this game. Topher Griffin coming up the outside, then juking over to the inside and going straight up the line, just sneaking past the last of the Vancouver blockers. Stark decides to play it safe. A very sensible choice there, calling it off. Take your 12 points, go back to the bench, do it again the next time. So final score after that jam is 31-26. That's a 5-point lead for the Vancouver Murder. Lining up now, we have Lodge for the Vancouver Murder. Number 101, that's Freak Style for the Bridgetown Menace. Freak Style making it out, getting lead jammer there just on the far side of turn 1. The rest of the pack all still sitting there in turn 1. Lodge getting cycled back. Lodge has now pulled off the helmet cover, pressing up the inside line. You know, you stash the star, it makes it a little less obvious who's who. And are you going to pass the star? Who knows? Looks like we've got 17 Zimmer with the pivot. However, Zimmer is not going to be able to take that a star pass because Zimmer is headed to the Hit This penalty box. So Lodge is still out there on the track fighting. Meanwhile, Freakstyle still stuck on the first pass. First scoring pass, rather. Coming out now, finally putting those 4 points up there. Hard fought. We're almost a minute into the jam. That brings Bridgetown to within 1 point of the Murder's current score. So I'm looking. Zimmer is in fact the jammer. Your scoreboard is correct. Zimmer was in the Hit This penalty box. had the cover in hand. So there is a completed star pass, and Zimmer is definitely your jam of record. So that explains why Lodge was not particularly fighting to get out of the pack there. So Zimmer going down on the outside of the track, just up on toe stops. I mean, good footwork, but ultimately off balance enough that it just worked out that way. All of the Bridgetown blockers seem to move to the outside of the track, just letting Zimmer go. I suspect that, yep, there it is. That means they're planning to do the call-off anyway, so more worried about points for their jammer than about the opposing jammer getting out there. That makes this overall a 9-point jam, so it's 9-0 in favor of Bridgetown. That puts Bridgetown up 4 points from the Vancouver murder. And it's now 35-31, 19 minutes remaining in the period. Just heard 4 whistles there. We'll see what that is. Looks like an official timeout. We'll take a second to talk about Rydell. Experience the game-changing Solaris. The performance you demand, the comfort you've been missing. He gets a skate from Rydell. Always thankful to Rydell for all of these events. They're a very consistent sponsor. It's not surprising, they make skates. Also, for some reason you're watching this stream, Rydell is on site in the vendor village, along with a number of our other sponsors. Okay, we're back to jamming. It's Ostentatious versus Flustercluck. Flustercluck working back and forth up the middle of the pack. Oh, it looks like Captain Obvious going to the box as the pivot, sitting in there next to Psycho, who was already in the hit this penalty box for Bridgetown. Flustercluck, meanwhile, has picked up lead jammer. Obviously, with a 2-blocker advantage, the Murder can split their efforts between offense and defense much more effectively than Bridgetown there. Bridgetown getting a blocker out at the last, so just having their pivot with looks like just over 10 seconds left to go. So that's Captain Obvious sitting there in the penalty box as pivot for the start of this next jam. So slight blocker advantage going into this jam. A little handshake there between number 43 Craftbeard and number 110 Mr. Testosterone. Always glad to see. I mean, MRDA is a relatively small community. Most everybody knows most everybody, especially if they've been in Derby for a good long while. So a lot of these folks, it's a fight on the track and friendship off the track. Looks like lead picked up by Craftbeer. Just a backwards jump there in the apex. Well, just past the apex between turns 1 and 2. Craftbeer going around. Heard a whistle there, and that's sending number 4-1. That's Rogers off of the floor for Vancouver. A second Vancouver blocker also coming off the floor. Looks like that's 0-1, Big Sexy. So 4-2 blocker advantage right now for Bridgetown. Jam completes. That's a 4-0 jam. It's now 39-34 in favor of Bridgetown. Both teams still have all of their timeouts, both of their official reviews, even though we're a quarter of the way through the game almost. Just under 17 minutes remaining. So by announcer math, it's a quarter of the way through the game. Starting up again with Topher Griffin versus Stark. Stark at the back facing off against 3 Bridgetown blockers. Topher Griffin getting lead but losing a wheel, deciding rather than calling it off to continue playing. So Stark coming in, getting points, calling it off, down 1 wheel. I'm betting unless they can find all the pieces, we might see a short official timeout here while they make sure to find all of the pieces off the track, because it's no fun to run over a part of a bearing or something like that. But wow, talk about trusting your team, knowing, you know what, they've got this job, I've got my job, I've got lead, I can come in and do this thing, let's make it happen. Putting points on the board, down 1 wheel. Okay, lead now going to Freak Style. Lodge, again, facing a wall of 3 Bridgetown blockers at the back. Those getting broken up, it looks by Bruiseberry Pie. So some good offensive blocking there. Bridgetown does a good job reforming, but ultimately just takes some points. Oh, takes no points and calls off the jam. Both teams down a blocker. Vancouver down a second blocker as well, which is a funny way to say that they're 2 blockers short and Bridgetown is only 1 blocker short, but I'll take it. Mr. Testosterone lining up alongside Ostentatious there at the start, both going to the inside. Mr. T blocking Austin towards the line, but Austin then getting pinned down by a set of Vancouver blockers, including 256 Morrison. Meanwhile, Mr. Testosterone picking up lead. He's about a half a track ahead of Austin. As Ostentatious comes into the back of the pack, we see Mr. Testosterone has picked up no points, so good point protection there by the Menace. Now we are more than halfway through the game. I missed the opportunity to say we were halfway through the first half. Now we are more than a quarter way through the game with 14 minutes remaining. This is Jam 13 beginning here. Score is 45-34 in favor of Bridgetown, so just an 11-point gap. We've got Craftbeard jamming for the Menace, Stark jamming for the Murder. The Murder now back at full strength as their last blocker comes out of the hit this penalty box. Craftbeard now has lead and is on a scoring pass coming into the back. This is now also a power jam. Stark heading to the box with the star on. So Stark all by themselves in the hit this penalty box. I won't sync this song because you don't want to hear me sing it. So coming into turn 2, we've got a 3-wall up there at the front being built by Vancouver. Although they getting very vigorous signals there from the Bridgetown bench to call it. Craftbeard looks to be in a bit of pain. Not enough to, call the jam, but definitely enough to cause a little bit of concern. Craftbeard is an important jammer in the Bridgetown rotation, and you really never want to see anybody get hurt. I mean, remember that all of these skaters, all of these officials, pretty much everybody here is a volunteer, and this isn't, it can be a real life-changing experience to be injured in Derby. Stark coming out of the hit this penalty box. The hit this penalty box is now empty, so lead is still available. It is, however, not anymore because it's picked up by Topher Griffin. So Topher Griffin coming around about a half a lap ahead of Stark. Stark out also. You can see Bridgetown staying up in front, defending their points from Vancouver. And it works because Topher Griffin picks up all of the Vancouver points and Stark picks up none of the Bridgetown points. So that's a 4-0 jam in favor of Bridgetown. Score is currently 57-34 with 12 minutes remaining in period 1. The hit this penalty box is now empty as we see, 101 Freakstyle and 338 Flustercluck lining up at that's the Eugene Weekly jammer line. The rest of the pack about 3 feet in front of the Eugene Weekly jammer line. Yet another whistle. I saw Flustercluck on the outside, but the whistle was not for that. It was actually for Freakstyle. Freakstyle sitting down for a back block. So back block going to put Freakstyle in the hit this penalty box for 30 seconds. During that, Flustercluck is going to take lead. And you see Vancouver setting up to try and be ready to break up the Bridgetown walls. Flustercluck going outside of the first blocker. That's 31 there, Ramrod. But into the wall of the rest of them. Okay, finally calling off. Let's look and see how many points on there. We ended up with 2 points on there for Flustercluck for the murder. Freakstyle still in the hit this penalty box, but standing, joined by Cosmo Damage, number 512. If If you've been following the Menace or the Murder for a long time, you'll notice a lot of these names are really familiar. A lot of these players have been here for a long time. Cosmo Damage, for instance, on the Menace for many years now. And that experience shows when they play. Now, Lodge getting out and lead. Freakstyle coming out of the box and getting held down by a set of Vancouver blockers there. They, however, get broken up while they're trying to let their blocker or their jammer through. Ultimately, Lodge getting out there, making the call off. Let's see how many points came up. Oh, it's 2 points for Bridgetown. So that turns it into a 4-2 jam in favor of the Murder. It's a 19-point gap in the score right now, 59-40. Pardon me, I'm going to have a drink of water. All right, I'm back. We got Cosmo Damage standing in the hit this penalty box, and I've got, it's 3-1 Bruiseberry Pie sitting in the hit this penalty box. Amazing spin there by number 1-2 Tommy Gun to do that block and then to stay in bounds just on 1 foot. I mean, those are skills you see jammers executing all the time. Rarer to see blockers do these intense balance moves. I mean, not because they lack the skill of it by any means. It's just not usually a part of blocking. So to integrate that and make it happen is a big deal. See, the star is off and in Mr. Testosterone's hand. Not sure if there's a pass attempt or if it's just getting thrown around there. But either way, the Menace are getting in the way of the pivot so that it's harder to make that star pass happen. Ultimately, Mr. Testosterone emerges out just ahead of Ostentatious. Ostentatious, oh, I'm sorry, must have received the star. Either that or I'm confused. Again, you can tell me with hashtag BigO2019 and I still won't see it. But everybody else will. Think of it, you can have secrets from the announcers. Okay, 8.5 minutes remaining in this half. We have number 8-2, Topher Griffin. So Topher Griffin back on the floor. Number 3-7, Stark for the Murder. 3-7, Stark ends up out in front with lead. Stand aside up there, giving some trouble to number 5, Eldorado, or Eldorado's given some trouble to stand aside. Either way, what it does is create enough clear air in the front to allow to Topher Griffin to get out. Ultimately, we end up with 4 points on the board for the Murder, 0 points on the board for Bridgetown. Bridgetown, however, still up 59-44 with 7.5 minutes remaining. Did you know that Chicks in Bowls is online? Yeah, it's pretty cool, eh? Visit cibcrew.com and use sale code BIGOYEAH, so, you know, Kool-Aid-ish, for $10%. Don't hold me to it. It's 10% off hardware such as slide blocks and wheels. It's active until the end of the Big O weekend, so you have until the end of May 5th, 2019 for that code to work. Okay, back to the action. We've got Freakstyle versus Flustercluck for jammers. Flustercluck still held in the pack, but Freakstyle is out and his lead jammer getting absolutely nailed down there by the pairing of Rogers, and I can't see the other one, so I'm sorry I said pairing, but there are definitely 2 of them, and one of them is Rogers. Both being directed by 0-1, Big Sexy. Is absolutely ground to a halt at the back there, despite help from Jamaican Psycho. Finally rolling up through the front, picking up 4 points, but they're hard-fought points. I mean, that's 45 seconds in to get that first pass. Meanwhile, star pass for the Murder. That star pass goes to 1-7 Zimmer. Zimmer puts the star on, gets up close to the pack, and it's called off. And some pretty good point protection there by the Murder. They end up giving up 2 of them, so 2 of their blockers protected their points. 2 of them fell by the wayside. Hit this penalty box appears to still be empty, so it looks like we'll have a full lineup there of both teams. You can see how the Murder is setting up their line in front. Bridgetown setting up their line in back. Ultimately, Ostentatious and Lodge are both hitting a wall of opponents. Lodge at the back there, fighting to push one of the Bridgetown opponents towards the inside line. It works until it doesn't. Again, same thing. That's 103 Loose Wheel doing the blocking there. Meanwhile, Ostentatious making it free in one of the messes that happens when all the blockers collide. The Murder looking to do an assist. Oh no, there's actually a star pass, but it looks like the star pass was not legit. 256 Morrison had received the star, but apparently also received the penalty. So Lodge picks the star back up, puts it back on, and gets back in the ring. Ostentatious doing an ostentatious move and coming around the outside of turn 4 on one leg, forced out of bounds, doing the call off. Ultimately ends up picking 2 points up for that. Puts the score to 71-44. That's 6 points for the Menace in this jam. Looks like we have Craft Beard and Mr. Testosterone up there. Lodge having a few words with the pivot in the penalty box. And see who that is. That's 256 Morrison. Probably explaining what happened or just talking it through, making sure they learn from it. I've said you can learn, you can win many ways in roller derby. One of them is actually winning by the score, one is winning by the rankings, and one is winning by learning. So if you can do some or all of them, you've really got it. Now, wow, there was a lead there for Mr. Testosterone. Mr. Testosterone ends up taking a block. There's something illegal about it. Did not catch the hand signal, but doing a forward barrel roll as part of taking the block, which just looks super impressive. I don't even care if it works. It's fun to watch. But unfortunately, still going to the box. So this is a power jam in favor of the Menace. Both teams have handed a fair number of power jams before. Ultimately, the Menace has been capitalizing just a little bit more on the power jams than the Murder have, but you can't really say that either one has been a dominant team in power jams. A lot of the jams look like this particular one. We've got 3 points up so far. We'll probably see 1 or 2 more passes depending on what happens with the Murder jammer. Now Mr. T coming up, getting forced down the outside. Meanwhile, Craftbeard making another pass. Mr. T now out, so I would expect this to be the last pass for Craftbeard. We'll see, of course, what they do. There are many strategies. A little bit of noise from the bench, but indeed not doing a call-off. Craftbeard sitting in the middle of the pack, getting beat up by number 17. That's Zimmer. Zimmer absolutely on Craftbeard. And, forcing Craftbeard into a wall of teammates. Meanwhile, Mr. Testosterone is facing off against 1-2. That's Tommy Gun and 5 Eldorado, who are providing a formidable wall at the back. Now that wall broken up a bit as 1-2 Tommy Gun, who is pivoting, goes to the hit this penalty box. Jam ultimately ends up, I believe that ended on time, actually. Next we have a team timeout. Team timeout going for the Bridgetown Menace. That was a 12-12 jam. It was just corrected to a 12-12 jam. So that was a tie jam. All that action out on the floor. Ultimately, it did not change the differential. It's an 83-56 game. Now, Bridgetown took that timeout. It looks like the Murder are just ready to go. They're already out there. I've seen a couple of folks hanging out there near the Eugene Weekly Jam line. A couple of folks just hanging out there chatting about what's going to happen. No visible stars right now, but there we go. We're going to end up with 37 start. Now, watching this, you can see the incredible level of physicality that both of these teams are bringing to the track. They're also both bringing their games. You can see multiple strategies getting pulled out, moved around, pulled out, moved around. I mean, ultimately, a game this hard fought, you can end up with completely losing track of your strategy, but both teams seem to be holding their strategy together so far. Of course, there's still a lot of game to go. We still have 2 minutes of this first half and then a whole second half of this game. Now, as we start into this next jam, Stark runs up the outside, but is ultimately beaten out by Topher Griffin. Topher Griffin picking up lead. Bridgetown is down one blocker in 3-1. Ramrod, who is, two blockers. I'm wondering there. I knew Tommy Gun was down. Didn't realize that Ramrod was also down, but looks like Ramrod finished up with the penalty, so able to leave the hit this penalty box and directed by the bench immediately onto the floor. So guess what? You're in this jam. So just Tommy Gun remaining in the hit this penalty box. Jam starting with 1-0-1 Freakstyle up against 3-3-8 Flustercluck. Both going to the outside, but Freakstyle gets forced to the outside by 1-0 Mrs. Testosterone. Tommy Gunn coming in and help, holding off Mrs. Testosterone with some contact there from the outside. Ultimately, the other teammates just spin right in, and we still don't have a lead jammer. I'm not 100% sure what just happened there. Just had that called off. It looks like there was a lead jammer. There was also a penalty. So this is going to start as a power jam with, I believe that's Freestyle and Ramrod in the box, and they hit this penalty box. I'm going to start with Lodge out there on the line alone. So there is a slight blocker advantage for Vancouver, and they get the benefit of being able to do all offense. And it appears to work just fine. We have a lead jammer there in Lodge. Freakstyle still sitting in the hit this penalty box. This is now a scoring pass, only 15 seconds in, so halfway through this power jam. Now, that was not a cut, was a point. That was a lot of contact there against Lodge, but ultimately both went out of bounds, so you can just come back in, and if you've already earned the point, you don't even suffer a penalty for it. And, suffer a downside for it, I should say. Of course, you don't get a penalty for it. Similar thing there. Really smart track awareness by Lodge. That is, however, only 3 points because it had not scored the point on the blocker yet. But still, just being able to know back in, knowing when you can go back in, it saves you a huge amount of time and effort as a blocker or as a jammer. Okay, and it looks like we just picked up a call there against the jammer, and I see Captain Obvious making a O symbol from the hit this penalty box. So we'll see if this particular last call gets reviewed. The period is over, and there indeed is the review from the Menace. A lot of trust between the teams there, or inside the team there, for the bench to be able to look at Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious had a different angle on it, thinks it went differently. They are going to talk with the officials about it. So we are in intermission. There will be a official review during the intermission. I'll see what I can do to find out the outcome of that, and I think it'll be pretty obvious, because if Freakstyle is in the hit this penalty box, they didn't win the review, and if Freakstyle is out of the hit this penalty box, they won it. So that's what we're looking for. We'll be back in just about 9 minutes for the second half of this Bridgetown Vancouver murder game. I can't wait. I'm Biggie Talls. This is coming from Big O 2019. This is the 6 p.m. Saturday game on Track 1, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Hello, hello. Welcome back. We are a minute out from the second half. I'm Biggie Tulls. I'll be joined shortly by Speaker of the House. So we've had the penalty boards up there. You can see nobody really in deep trouble on the Vancouver murder. We've had 3 penalties each for Stand Aside and Rogers, 2 for Big Sexy and Bruiseberry Pie, and then the rest is just a smattering of singles. And no real patterns there except for Big Sexy's 2 cuts. But, that's 2 isn't even necessarily a pattern. It's just coincidence. Also, if you look at the score differential so far, you look at the points per jam, you can see a lot of balanced score there, a lot of back and forth. No huge droughts for anybody. Bridgetown a little bit more consistent, but not necessarily enough to even be really a statistical thing you could point at. I'm no statistician, but I'm not sure I'd bet on that one being statistically significant. So it looks like the official review was not won by Bridgetown because I still see Freak Style in the hit this penalty box. Okay, I'm going to turn this monitor back on. Okay, you do not sound like Speaker of the House, do you?
No.
Okay.
Hi, Biggie. How are you? This is Beautiful Banshee. How's everybody out there?
Hello, everybody out there. This beautiful Banshee is joining me. So as you can imagine, this call was actually originally supposed to be me and Julia Sleazer.
Yes.
But you know what? We're looking at the entire Derby announcer verse over here, and we're saying, hey, this is Big O. We got all these wonderful announcers here. Let's make some awesome happen.
And speaking of awesome.
Yeah, we just jumped into Jam 1 of the second period. We've got Freak Style and Mr. Testosterone. Mr. Testosterone is out with lead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, go on. I've just been announcing alone for half an hour, so I'm like totally used to. I'll just say all the things.
Well, right now, all the things are happening at the front of the pack, and we have Bridgetown's pivot Tommy Gun really maneuvering the pack, getting a shoulder knock to Mr. Testosterone in that backstretch, really moving toward turn 3, and Bridgetown putting those brakes on, but Mr. Testosterone is relentless, determined to bust through that seam, though. Looks like the floor might happen first, unless he backs off, and he does. To the further back of our monitor here, I can see that Murder is working on Freak Style, though throws him off balance, keeps inbounds and in play. So seeing, of course, Vancouver has lead, we'll find out if Freak Style is able to capitalize on any points.
During that jam, about 15 seconds before the end, we had Big Sexy go to the hit this penalty box. So we now have a 1 blocker advantage for Bridgetown. A little conversation coming there. Hey, what's going on? You know what? And then Lodge goes, okay, now I know what's going on. Now I know when Big Sexy's coming out. We got this. So Lodge lines up alongside Topher Griffin at the Eugene Weekly Jammer line. Everybody else is up at the pivot line. And I'd say they take off, but really they only just start rolling into the first turn.
Exactly. Nobody wants to give too much space.
However, Topher Griffin taking space at the front, picking up lead, forcing 256 Morrison up far in the pack, and then eventually out of play.
Lodge stashes the star as a diversionary tactic at the back of the pack against the Bridgetown Brace 2 wall, able to come around safe side. It appears to have been effective. Up the straightaway he goes.
Lodge, meanwhile, up the straightaway. If I say it and you've said it and it's still true, it's true.
It's okay. We're just playing parrots, Pete and repeat.
Wait, that's chickens.
I mean, hashtag Big O Burbs.
Burbs. Hashtag Burbs. Hashtag Big O Burbs. Hey, you know that you can also send pictures of your pets enjoying the Big O from home. That's hashtag Big O Cats and hashtag Big O Dogs. We love to see our furry fans and our feathered fans and our fluffy fans and our other alliteration fishy fans.
But even our scaled fans, because earlier on, Loose Change and I had a hashtag Big O Snick.
Oh my goodness.
So we'll see.
Snick.
I will keep an eye out on Twitter for that. But right now we're watching the track. Lodge. Oh no, I don't believe that is Lodge. That's number 37 on Vancouver
37
Murder.
is Stark. We've got Stark against Ostentatious. You kind of can't miss Ostentatious. That flowing hair up at the front. Eventually making it out with the lead, getting sucked back in, and then making it out with lead. Ostentatious coming back around while Stark is still stuck in the pack there, ultimately getting forced close to the outside line by Tommy Gun, but tacking on it, bringing the energy in and moving forward. coming into the pack. Meanwhile, Ostentatious still scoring points in the pack. Calls it off. Ultimately, let's see how many points were up there. Actually, I said scoring points. I should have said scoring point.
Yes, just a single point. Taking Bridgetown 292 to Vancouver Murder 70. And we do have a pack advantage in Jam 4 for Vancouver Murder, as we have just one Bridgetown blocker sitting in our penalty box, the Hit This Derby Gear penalty box. And contrary to what some may believe, going to that penalty box does not get you free Hit This gear.
No, it doesn't. Looks like we've got Bruce Payne in there for Bridgetown. To be joined by a second Bridgetown skater, and also by Flustercluck, who is jamming for the Vancouver Murder. So this is a power jam. Craftbeard out there coming back around with lead. The whole pack is heading off into turn 2. You can see that three-person setup being led by number 256 Morrison up there at the front of the pack. Back of the pack being held together by 103. That's Loose Wheel in the back. I don't actually talk about Loose Wheel a lot, but Loose is in a lot of action going out there on the track. It's just not getting penalties and not getting in trouble.
Well, speaking of that, Hit This penalty box in a little bit of trouble, we're seeing Vancouver Murder just released their jammer, Flustercluck, from the penalty box, and two blockers stand aside, and Bruceberry Pie are having a seat as well. So the reduced line may not work in Flustercluck's favor.
Well, and those are both very productive blockers for Vancouver. So the ultimate end result of that, as this jam is ending, is 16-0 in favor of Bridgetown. So that's a huge jam for Bridgetown. And that really opens up the gap. It's a 38-point gap. Now, that's not, for neither of these teams is that a very big gap.
No.
But Bridgetown has definitely had a little bit more momentum, both finishing out the first half and coming into the second half than the Murder.
Now, for what we see, we do not have a full complement of blockers. Just that 4-3 pack advantage at current for Bridgetown. And looks like we have folks flying out near that crash zone. That's why we've had safety warnings in the venue. But neck and neck, Mr. Testosterone forcing the call off.
Yeah, one stride apart between Mr. Testosterone and I believe that was number 43 on Bridgetown, Craftbeard?
Yes, Craftbeard.
We're going to have an empty Hit This penalty box. So everybody lining up close to the Eugene Weekly Jammer line. That's number 8, Lodge for the Murder. Number 8, Topher Griffin for Bridgetown. Topher Griffin just tiptoeing up the inside line. Of course, I tell you, it's more like tip stomping, really. But tiptoeing up the inside line, picking up lead, and already back around to face off against the Murder.
Now, Lodge has taken the star off his helmet, though cycled back behind the pivot line, and a formidable force, brace 2 wall of Bridgetown blockers, cycles him back. So an additional scoring trip right now in progress for Topher Griffin. So pack moving along in turn 2. Everybody getting a little spread out, but of course a quick recoil of Bridgetown. And we have a pair of blockers right in the front. That will be 1939 Bruce Payne. And the last line of defense, I didn't quite catch the number because of camera angles and such, but
yes,
great efforts nonetheless.
Ultimately, the star getting passed there to Morrison. Morrison coming around, not picking up any points, but forcing the call-off from the Menace. So that's only a 3-point second pass there. Still, however, a 7-0 jam in favor of Bridgetown. Now, Bridgetown's been putting points on the board for a while, and that's really opening up the gap between them and the Murder. Hey, did you know you can visit derbywarehouse.com for all of your derby gear needs? And they have free shipping and free returns.
Oh, I love free. Or as I like to say, the low price of free, $99.
Oh, there you go.
But what is not free? The cost to pass the Vancouver Murder lineup. Right now, there is a brace 2 wall, though Tommy Gun, Bridgetown's pivot, just getting right in there, attacking the links. And still, though, not able to free Ostentatious.
Yeah, there's a 4-2 blocker advantage in favor of the Vancouver Murder right now. End result seems to be Stark getting out lead and Ostentatious getting stuck in the pack. Kind of not surprising. With 4 players on the floor instead of 2, you can split between offense and defense in a way that 2 players just can't do.
All right, we're seeing some backwards blocking from Vancouver's pivot. And a little split pack. We have the brace 2 wall, doing that, either making it the person who is playing offense. And it really seemed to just give that little nudge and allow Stark to pass up the outside line. Big Sexy with the drawback on Tommy Gun, who has taken the star.
Tommy Gun off in the last line of defense after the opposing jammer has broken through every other part of the pack. In this case, that agility and speed really useful for receiving the star pass. You can see just hidden a little bit by folks, just hopping up on toe stops, staying barely inside, making it around the outside.
It was a Lukma, no hands, almost Pegasus type action.
Absolutely.
Don't act like you're not impressed, because I know I am.
I'm totally impressed. And I'm also impressed that the Vancouver Murder put up an 11-point jam there. After that short drought they had, they're now in a spot where they've closed that gap by 11 points. That's a pretty substantial thing with these teams.
Oh, most definitely. I believe the highest scoring jam thus far has been, there had been a 16
There's been a 16-point jam.
I don't think there's been anything higher.
I haven't seen anything higher.
So
now it's announcer math, so we could be wrong. You could do hashtag Big O 2019 and tell us if we are.
And feel free to let us know, and we'll check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, of course. But heading into Jam 8, but wait, there's more. It's an official timeout brought to you by the WFTDA. As you know, the Big O 2019 is a WFTDA recognized tournament. So if you're interested in the additional WFTDA recognized tournament schedule, visit WFTDA.com/tournaments. Though, of course, we have MRDA teams before us. Fluster Cluck securing lead for Vancouver Murder. But though not far behind, it is Craft Beard of Bridgetown. The gem is called...
Looks like a 2, or is that 3? I see a thumb there. That looks like a 3-point.
3. It's, what is that? That's the sign for I love you or something? I think that's, or the metal with just a thumb.
Or slightly confusing.
Yeah, definitely slightly confusing.
any of these options.
3. There are many variations, and we're making hand signals over here.
Or just you can't see us. It's actually fine.
We might as well be making shadow puppets because you can't see them anyway. But right now, yes, team timeout called by Bridgetown. And while we wait, just want to let you know, in case you have not considered visiting RollerCon, it is really your roller derby family reunion every summer. 11.5 tracks, indoor skate park, hundreds of coaches, games, social events, vendors, seminars, clinics, activities, and so much more. We hope to see you there. RollerCon, make sure you check them out on the social media. Of course, Facebook, just look up RollerCon and you can get ticketing information.
All right, we see the officials putting their serious faces on. We see them marked a team timeout. So I think this was started as an official timeout, moved into a team timeout, something along those lines. I lose track of these things. Speaking of scales and Big O dogs, Big O cats, Big O snack, I feel like a goldfish sometimes. The thing happens, it's done, it's gone, it's passed.
Yes, I completely relate to that. And speaking of what has passed, popping up on those toe stops, 101 freak style up the straightaway, able to evade the pack and hot on the heels of Mr. Testosterone, who did secure lead for Vancouver Murder. And both jammers reaching the pack. Mr. Testosterone stops the bleeding. Scoreless jam.
That pack really picking up the pace. Now, that jam ends with one Bridgetown blocker in the hit this penalty box. We've got Jamaican Psycho with just 2 seconds left, so this will be an advantage at the start for Bridgetown, or for Vancouver, but just for 2 seconds. Plus, how long it takes to get across the floor.
Very true. And just funny thing, Biggie, last night in Vancouver's game, not Vancouver, Bridgetown's game, I did confirm that Jamaican Psycho prefers eggshell for his business cards.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. As we know, it's a serious thing in American Psycho, whether it's the font, the ink, or the card. But I digress. We have Lodge out there jamming against Topher Griffin. And, of course, Bridgetown in gray with purple accents, and Vancouver Murder in black with red accents.
Iron Fist number 5-6 going to the hit this penalty box. Meanwhile, I've heard some whistles, but I don't see any leads. Looks like there are no signals of lead, so this is expected to be a full 2-minute jam.
Yes, and Captain Obvious pivot for Bridgetown in the hit this penalty box. Iron Fist standing, about to be released.
Next time we have a break and play, we'll show you the penalty counts. Bridgetown had a couple of players in a little bit of trouble at the start. I have not been tracking if it's exactly the same players having the trouble, so we'll see what that looks like. Meanwhile, Topher Griffin getting sent out by Harrison Ford up there well in front of the pack. Harrison Ford just then recycling back in, making Topher face the entirety of the pack. Oh, a very smart play there by Harrison Ford. Forced Topher Griffin out, stepped out, but did it while Topher Griffin was down and facing away, so was able to step back in, do a little bit of like, you didn't know I go out. You didn't know I go out. We got this.
So, Biggie, just have to throw it out there.
Yes.
Someone, I believe it was Quantum Mechanic, noted on Twitter that part of them wants to hear you banter with yourself during the second half of this pretty damn exciting game.
My goodness.
So
I was thinking about how to do that, and I wasn't sure I could handle it without making voices.
But I did chime in and let them know that you're stuck talking derby with me now, so there you have it.
I'm okay with that.
All right. It's
glad to have you here,
company.
Banshee.
Likewise, but I found that quite funny. I'm thinking, oh, well, talking to ourselves, is it really all that different? I'm sure we all do it.
Okay, that jam ended with Morrison having received the star and sitting down in the hit this penalty box. So this is going to be a fresh power jam start for Bridgetown.
Yes, and that 12-7 jam resulted in a score of 127 Bridgetown, Vancouver 91.
Lodge stopping by to talk in the box to Morrison, so formulating a little bit of strategy. Earlier in this game, we saw some power jams that were really not super beneficial to one team or the other. These teams doing a great job when they're doing shifting to just purely defense and doing a great job of shutting down the other team, even with offensive blocking. You'll see the offensive blocking cause a momentary blip, but then immediate reformation. There's going to be a little bit of a challenge here, though, because this is now a 2-4 pack with Vancouver down. There's two blockers, one in the hit this penalty box, one just sitting. Who have we got sitting over there, Banshee?
Well, right now we have 5-1-2, Cosmo Damage having a seat, though Collitz was in the penalty box and is no longer, though is not on the track. Collitz was wearing the pivot stripe. So there's some clarification needed.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll look at the penalty counts
yes.
again. Meanwhile, we also have Big Sexy and Zimmer sitting down for the Vancouver Murder. As this jam ends, it ends, it was 8 points, and it is still 8 points. And it is still 8 points, and now it is still 8 points. So we got... So, Biggie, what did you think of that last jam? Well, I have to say, it was pretty controlled for a power jam, but ultimately, Bridgetown was able to put 8 points up. I definitely agree with you there. Bridgetown's done a better job of getting some real power out of this power jam compared to some of their previous ones. It's possible that they looked at some strategy at the halftime. It's true, we didn't talk about any strategy coming out of the halftime.
No.
So, interesting to see what adjustments happen there. Now, we are in an official timeout. I did promise we would show the penalty counts. So here come the penalty counts for Bridgetown.
Okay.
So you can see both Loose Wheel and Captain Obvious have fouled out. Ouch.
Yes, and I this is my take on this, that perhaps, well, Collitz isn't on there. Was Collitz listed as someone else?
Yeah, some of these, they're like Russian novelist characters. They have 3 or 4 names.
Oh, okay, good to know. That was the part that I found confusing, so I just wanted to make sure. Now
Vancouver.
Yeah, they're keeping it 4 and under.
It's a little 4 is a little bit dangerous right now, but you can finish out the game if you're at 4 at this point.
And the majority of Stan Decide's penalties, he is the skater that has 4 on Vancouver, were occurred in the first period of the game.
Yes, and Stan continues to be in jam after jam. Like this jam that started with Craftbeard up against Mr. Testosterone. No lead jammer yet. I saw a wave off there, so I'm not sure what was going on with that. Perhaps a no pass, no penalty. Lead is now handed to Craftbeard, but this is after Mr. Testosterone has put 4 points on the board. You hear you could hear over the stream, I think, because I heard it in my headphones,
Yes.
the Bridgetown bench yelling for a call off there.
Oh, well, even Tommy Gunn pivot on the track. He was the one whose voice kept carrying. I don't know. He was, but everybody was in unison.
Yeah, and sometimes as a player, you get that focus, and you're just like, I'm doing the thing right now, and then you realize somebody's been yelling my name. I should do the other thing.
Hyper focus. What? So a 4-2 pack advantage now for Bridgetown.
Oh my goodness!
Just
there.
slicing down the middle, freak style.
Yeah, there were just two Bridgetown blockers, went straight to the outside. Freak style just slotted between them like it was just this little momentary window of passing. Unfortunately,
Back block.
Yeah, back block took the lead to the penalty box. Oh, wow, and took a big old flop to the penalty box there. Tripped over something. Not sure what's going on there. We're going to sit in the hit this penalty box. This jam will run the remaining minute and a half.
Oh, and I did realize what happened with those penalty counts, Biggie.
Oh, yeah?
So 31, who the name Collett is on the Bridgetown jersey, is actually Ramrod. So
Okay.
Ramrod was the blocker who sat to serve the penalty for number 7.
Bingo.
Yeah, for the skater who fouled out. So it all
Okay.
makes sense now. Okay.
And you don't get to rejoin play if you're sitting
No.
for a penalty.
So we have 3 points up on the first scoring trip for Vancouver.
Well, actually, you wouldn't be sitting for it. I've just confused myself. Ignore what
Yeah.
I said last.
It's okay. We are back at it, though, and right in the middle, that is Flustercluck, sort of appropriately placed.
Yeah. Oh, the star has been passed to Stan Decide. Stan used to jam regularly back at the days when Stan was with Puget Sound Outcasts Derby, but has not been a key rotation jammer in the Vancouver
YOLO.
Murder. Yeah, right? Just jump.
One never knows until they try for the jump, and although it was not successful, it pleased the crowd.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that would have given you the points. So even if the jam
True.
had ended there, would have had the points, even though it landed and then fell down.
Yes, and currently it'll be 13-4 on this jam so far in favor of Vancouver, though that quick little jump from Freak Style, we'll see how many he picks up.
So Stand Aside having sent the Murder over the century mark. It's now 143-108, 12 minutes remaining in the period.
And Vancouver does win 13-8 on the jam, so we'll see what kind of games they can continue to build.
And they're going to have a little bit easier of a start here. Both the pivot, Tommy Gunn, and Jamaican Psycho are sitting in the box in the hit this penalty box for Bridgetown Roller Derby. So it's a 4-2 pack advantage. 4-2 pack advantage, words that you always want to hear as defenders.
Yes, never as the jammer. Okay, so currently Lodge still working it out, though getting some assistance from Morrison and clearing that inside line. So right up the turn 1 apex. Lead has been declared. It is Lodge.
Yep. Cosmo damage there, giving some trouble to Lodge there at the end, then getting juked to the outside, and bam. Let's see if there are any points here. It looks like none to me. Yep, that's what we got. The fists go up. 2 fists.
And that's it.
Solidarity from the jammer referees.
Not to be mistaken for Iron Fist.
Absolutely
He's
not
skating.
at all.
Could not help it. And definitely not the
Oh,
Marvel
don't help
show.
it.
Marvel show, no. I've heard it's not very good, but what do I know?
I won't say.
No spoilers. And taking a lower vantage point off of our local and vocal Eugene weekly jammer line, that would be Stark up against Topher Griffin, and of course Stark with the Murder, and Bridgetown's Topher Griffin, and lead going for Bridgetown.
Topher Griffin coming around about a fifth of a lap ahead of Stark. So this is one of those careful call-offs. Oh, I'm seeing a
Jazz split landing.
somewhat upset expression there from 142 Jamaican Psycho. Not sure what it's about, but it seemed to be rolling it off. Rolling it off to the penalty box.
Yes, to the hit this Derby gear penalty box.
And it looks a lot like Jamaican Psycho confirming 5 penalties there, because comes in, offers a high five to the penalty box.
Jam is on, and Mr. Testosterone whirling and twirling around the outside, but had one last defender to pass. Does so with a quickness. And Static Pack right before a pivot line. Craft Beard attempting to escape, and a scoring trip in progress. Oh, completed 4 points for Mr. Testosterone.
Both of these jammers have been really productive in this game, been in a lot of jams, doing a lot of work. I mean, ultimately, jamming is hard work. Jamming a lot is even harder work. And jamming a lot against teams with blockers like this, it's insanity. It's impressive that anybody can do it, and to do it as well as Mr. Testosterone is right now, and with style. 12 points up already, coming out of the pack into a one-footed backwards spin. Current score 145 to 120. Looks like it's going to be even closer here in a second. You can hear the crowd starting to go as 4 more points go up on the board. Now 16-point jam there for Mr. Testosterone. This is the same as the largest jam we've seen so far. Very good chance it will end up larger than that even. And waiting here, burning a little bit of time. The penalty box is empty, so it looks like that was a little bit of, I'm just going to play with you, make you think maybe you can get some points there. But no, Tommy Gunn,
Whole lot
you're
of
not
nope.
getting points.
Nope.
Yep, full nope. So now we have a new highest scoring jam. That's 20 points unanswered for Mr. Testosterone and the Vancouver Murder. It's now 145 to 128. That's a 17-point gap. That is smaller than the jam we just saw.
Most definitely is. And with Jam 17 upon us, the numbers lining right up, and we have a nice little blocker huddle on camera.
Team timeout here. Team timeout coming from Bridgetown. Now that's interesting. This is Bridgetown's last team timeout, so they can't stop the clock again unless they use their official review. They do still have their official review, but that's a lot of clock stoppages there for Bridgetown.
It is, but they're feeling confident about it, clearly. Either that or they desperately needed a reset. Sometimes you just need that because especially, I know we usually are focused on the physical game.
Right.
But the mental game, Biggie, we know is such a crucial piece. And especially when you start seeing people go for those big swooping hits. And if you just go strictly aggressive, that is not always the smartest way to do it. And that's when mistakes happen. And you end up with high penalty counts, foul outs, whatnot. And especially where they have 2 skaters out already. Bridgetown wants to be cognizant of that. So Jam is back on. We have Flustercluck wearing the star for Vancouver up against Freakstyle. So an F and F line there, but Freakstyle working the front of the pack. Everything getting a little bit caught up together, but
that was, I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you. That looked painful.
Okay.
That was Cosmo damage landing on top of Flustercluck.
And a smart call off.
Nothing intentional about it, but just a painful looking hit there.
And harassing Ford having a seat in our hit this penalty box.
Now, these teams right now, we're talking 2.8 points per minute for Bridgetown, 2.5 points per minute for the Vancouver Murder. So that gives you an idea just how closely matched a lot of this has been. A couple of points here and there throughout the game would have made the difference for the score that we're seeing right now.
Now, Topher Griffin with the star for Bridgetown up against Stark. So again, we're seeing that tight jammer rotation. And right now, a whole lot of chaos. The pack getting divided as it extends out past the pivot line. So the last 2 blockers being Big Sexy and Zimmer, unable to contain Topher Griffin. So currently a scoring trip is about to begin.
However, lead is available. And got lead. Yep, there we go. That was it. Lead went to 3-7 Stark, and an immediate call off. Just limit the damage there because you're slightly behind. It's a tough change. It's a tough choice here because we have less than 7 minutes in the game. You're just 21 points down. You know you can get that in a couple of really solidly good jams, but you need to have the jams to do that because if you have a couple of jam drought, you've just given yourself that many fewer chances to really put a solid jam together. And the difference here between a really solid or really amazing jam and a kind of weak jam can be just the tiniest things because there's so many strong players here, so many details to the strategy.
Most definitely. And what we're seeing right now, we do finally have 3 blockers on the track for Vancouver Murder at the top of the pack. But initially was a twosome. Didn't know if it's the smartest way. It looks like we have all 3 blockers backwards.
Oh, my goodness.
It's an interesting take,
There's certainly a way to do it.
I mean,
it seems to have worked for them. I mean, they've picked up lead. Lodge is now lead.
And I commend that bold choice. It did work in their favor. Now, Ostentatious just stashed that star for Bridgetown to get through the pack, though Tommy Gun trying to shoulder it out and be a wall of one against Lodge, but Lodge does endure 4 points on the scoring trip.
Ostentatious still stashed up there at the front. 2-5-6 going for a low block. That's Morrison going for a low block. So one blocker down. Oh, big assisted force out there from Harrison Ford, giving a shove to, I believe that's Stark.
Let's see here. Well, we had a couple of things happening. So right now we're seeing a big push coming from, okay.
No, that's
so
not Stark. That was Zimmer.
That was Zimmer. But we had a pair of Bridgetown blockers clearing the line as now the 3 blockers for Vancouver getting split up. Tommy Gun did take the star pass for Bridgetown, though I don't believe any points picked up, but we'll double check.
Some deep, so 10 points for the Vancouver Murder, 0 for Bridgetown. Some deep clock management and sort of psychology going on there, making Tommy Gun spend that energy, finish off that jam, not get anything for it. Also giving everybody on the Vancouver bench just a moment longer to refresh. I mean, you're sort of winning in both dimensions. Of course, you're giving both teams the opportunity to refresh, so it's a little bit risky there.
But at the same time, they managed to narrow Bridgetown's lead to just 11 points now.
And the Vancouver Murder have control of the clock right now.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as they can keep getting lead or forcing the call-offs, they can stop the clock 3 more times. They can really pick. They can at least put their finger on how much of a jam we're going to have left or how few jams we're going to have left.
Especially if you break momentum of your opposition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Crucial.
And just 11 points down. I mean, this was a 10-point jam. That shows you just how dangerously close this is for Bridgetown. This is not anywhere in the bag for them. This is like nearby the bag, sticking its tongue out at the bag.
Going, neener, neener, neener.
And I think that metaphor can't actually go any further.
No, we're going to leave that alone.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like the neener, 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 though.
Neener, neener, neener.
Because, I'm a child.
Fair enough. All right, this team timeout finishing up. Everybody coming back out onto the track. No real delay there. Of course, you can force it to go all the way to 1:30, but it looks like we will start at about 1:15. We've got the battles of the binary, 1-1-0 Mr. Testosterone versus 1-0-1 Freakstyle. Freakstyle is out for a lead. Mr. Testosterone, meanwhile, having been forced to the inside by a 3-wall from Bridgetown. Bridgetown doing the classic 3-1 defense-offense. That 3-wall is ultimately really tough work for the jammer to make it past, and that 1 on the offense can make a huge difference, and in fact it seems to, with Freakstyle getting a first 4-point pass, so leading 4-point pass. Mr. Testosterone is out now, so the pressure is going to be on. Question is when to call, how to call, and if anybody stops the clock afterwards.
And there you have it, the time to call. Right after you said it, perhaps the it's funny because people say the announcer curse, but sometimes it's a gift, and in this case for Bridgetown,
I think we've seen a little bit of roller derby too. Sometimes we know what these players are going to do, and sometimes we just can't see into their hearts and minds.
Well, there really aren't quote-unquote derby secrets. We know this, so it's just a matter of, hey, that's the way the game unfolds. Speaking of the way things unfold, currently we have a low start really invading the space of Stark from Vancouver because it is Tommy Gun along with 1939. Bruce Payne working that drawback, and Tommy Gunn and Stark with smiles.
Absolutely impressive backing up there from Tommy Gunn. Tommy Gunn looked about to be forced out of bounds and just almost unwound it. It was like you just hit rewind on the machine, and suddenly Tommy Gunn is back there ready for the pullback. This is also getting blown out a bit by, we're not talking about Topher Griffin jamming because honestly the story is more about whether or not Stark can pull anything off, because that is the hope for Vancouver. Meanwhile, Bridgetown is just consistently putting points up on the board ever since that team timeout. So you want to talk momentum. they've definitely taken a bit of it. It's now a 19-point gap, and I suspect it ends up bigger as this jam is called off.
And we have 2 blockers from Bridgetown in the Hit This Derby Gear penalty box. And again, certainly not helping Bridgetown's case at the moment.
So this is a risky moment for Bridgetown. I mean, 4-2 advantage. Both of those blockers are sitting, so you know there's well more than 10 seconds for at least 10 seconds for both of them. And the Bridgetown, we have an official review, but it is being used as a timeout.
Yes.
That's what I just heard from our fellow announcers over here on the house. So, hey, it says team timeout on your board. And here we go. I don't know why it's blinking for Vancouver because it is an official review. This all makes sense.
It'll catch up eventually.
It'll all make sense.
And I know we've had a little bit of a switcheroo here because I popped in with you.
Glad to have you.
And likewise, glad to be here. But on the house, because that was the voice of Speaker of the House joining Rippy Longstock.
Yes.
So that way she was not all alone, because sometimes it does get lonely on the mic.
And you really can't banter as well with yourself as you can with somebody else.
So you had a pretty good rhythm there.
I've done a little bit of banter.
There you go. So it works. And up next, because there is one more game on track 1 today.
Yes.
So while we have a moment, I just want to tell you, we have a Montreal Roller Derby's new skids.
Yes.
Taking on the Wheels of Justice. From
Okay.
Rose City Rollers.
So that's going to be your 8 p.m. track 1 game at
Yes.
#BigO 2019 here.
Just wanted to throw that out there. But now, Mr. Testosterone back at it, getting driven to the outside on the straightaway by Tommy Gunn. Given that mean mug, though, he's able to dip and dive around. But Tommy Gunn was hot on his heels, but Mr. Testosterone, your lead jammer.
Ostentatious getting sent to the infield, having to take the safe route and not come back in. Meanwhile, Mr. Testosterone demonstrating that smart derby that you know Mr. T for, looking and saying, I was hit out of bounds. They went out of bounds too. It's okay, I can go. Mr. T having put 4 points up on the board, putting more points up on the board right now as the jam ends. We'll see how many come up there, but it looks like the Bridgetown Menace will be shut out. Ostentatious is a great jammer, but at the same time, there's definitely been a bit of the murder having Austin's number.
Very true. In mid-jam, Tommy Gunn ended up in the penalty box as well, in the Hit This penalty box. So Tommy Gunn was a veritable force, one of the most aggressive, divisive skaters on Bridgetown as far as splitting the Vancouver pack.
So just 1 or 2 jams left. You can see Jamaican Psycho is in a bit of trouble. The rest of the folks on Bridgetown not necessarily in the same shape. Tommy Gunn actually having picked up, I believe, all these penalties in the second half.
Yes.
But in comparison, you look over here at the Murder, and they've still actually been skating relatively clean. There have been a couple of pairings gone to the box in the last handful of jams, but for the most part, they don't have anybody really in trouble. So they still have access to their whole jammer rotation. They still have access to their whole pivot rotation. And if they get the opportunity, they have to swap somebody out or the opportunity to star pass or something like that, they don't have to worry that they're passing themselves into trouble.
Exactly. And just let's see what we have. There are
13 point gap.
Points, yes.
Minute 23 left on the clock. Everybody lined up around the Eugene Weekly local and vocal jammer line, and we're off and going with Freakstyle and Stark. We've seen this pairing before. Let's see how it comes out now, and it looks like Freakstyle is leading. I can't tell you what this is going to mean, but I'm like catching my breath here.
And Stark out of the pack. Now we have a brace 2-wall from Vancouver Murder able to take Freakstyle to the outside line, though Tommy Gunn getting in there. We'll see what he has to say about it. Nope, heading for the front, working on Stark, who is still on the initial. Tommy Gunn forced out and back, but looks like he's off to the Hit This penalty box.
Correction there. Stark is actually on a scoring pass, so has put 4 points on the board. Now, that means that Freakstyle has just put 4 points on as well.
Okay, they were
now, there's
closer
2
than I
paths to go here. No idea which one they're going to take. What you see in there?
I just took a second because we saw Freakstyle hitting the floor, and it appears Vancouver Murder calling for an official review. It was an 8-5 jam in favor of Vancouver.
So this is a 10-point game.
Yeah.
10-point game. Now, that was the last opportunity the Murder have to stop the clock. Unless they successfully win a review, and it looks like they are actually taking a review.
Yes, they are. And since we do have 26 seconds remaining on the period clock. Oh, it's so tense.
Yeah.
But that is all right. And we have a fantastic crew of officials. Did you have the opportunity?
I did, but you know what? It never hurts to do it in the second half as well.
I just figured while we have a moment.
Let's do it.
Folks, currently reviewing, we have on-skates and off-skates officials. Here they are, Nitsugi, Darth Bling, Jersey, Lauren Order, Wookiee Mistake, Candyman, Beverly Crusher, Spike, Connie, Geo Knitter, Chirofracture, Connie, Flourish and Blocks, Doof Warrior, Torque Mama, Tumble Tina, Read the Rules, I love that name, Tuck and Roll, and D Baggins. So thank you for all that you do, officials. And we've even seen the officials getting a lot of love on Derby Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
With that hashtag Big O 2019. So thanks, fans. We appreciate it because they are the unsung heroes of roller derby many times.
Well, we sing a tiny about them, I think.
Well, we do. We
just a tiny amount.
Just a little
bit.
bit.
Mostly unsung.
But many times it's the skaters and the announcers, because we're the voices that are heard.
Yes.
That get the credit on Twitter. So it's appreciated.
So lineups happening. Not sure how this official review is coming out. I have seen teams strategically use the official review sometimes just to get basically a 2.5 minute stoppage in the game. I mean, you still, of course, want to use a review that if you win, it's actually going to benefit you. But you aren't necessarily as worried that you're going to win or not, because ultimately you still get the opportunity to take a pause. You can talk to your team. You can bring things together a little bit. You can use it like a super timeout, like an ultra timeout, like a double timeout, whatever you want to call it.
How about double stuff timeout? Like
there
a double stuff Oreo or the mega stuff Oreos?
Mega stuff. It's a mega timeout.
I can't help it. It's that point in the day. I'm sitting here going, okay, I could go for a snack. Oreos sound good.
You could take a nano timeout.
Nano timeout, but that would be super tiny, wouldn't it?
It would be. It's true. Now, mega timeout it is.
Yes, mega timeout. MTO.
So I'm seeing it looks like the dot. Unfortunately, I can't quite see if the review was one or not.
It was not one. They lost
no
the
dot.
review. It's not retained.
Okay, so we're starting off this jam. This is very likely to be the ultimate jam of this really ultimate game. And lead goes to Mr. Testosterone. Mr. Testosterone out with lead. 2-blocker, a jammer advantage for the Vancouver Murder. Evaporates into a 1-blocker jammer advantage. But there goes a pass. Mr. T barely even breaking stride to get past, coming around again to try to put more points on. It's now 158-164.
Oh, Mr. Testosterone looks like
but he's still doing another pass. He's lead.
Yeah.
Now, Topher Griffin not even out, eligible to score points yet, and yet another penalty. So now 3 Bridgetown blockers in the box. Topher Griffin out and absolutely blown up by Big Sexy. Oh,
Mr. Testosterone.
I wish I knew what was going on.
Completes the trip.
Okay, 4 points put on for Topher Griffin, so I was wrong there. That is a 4-point pass for Topher Griffin. Mr. Testosterone needs to get one more pass up. This is 166-168. Picks up the 4 points. That puts it to 170-168. It's 16-4 jam. Mr. T is lead.
And we
Banshee,
saw Vancouver's coach urging Mr. Testosterone to keep going. Now he calls it off, and we will get official confirmation. But that was the biggest jam in the game.
Yes, tied
points.
for the biggest jam. 20 points in the game. Mr. Testosterone at the end.
3 points.
3 points in the pocket for Bridgetown.
174 for Vancouver Murder, 171 Bridgetown. And of course, Biggie, once the officials confirm, we can unequivocally congratulate Vancouver Murder. But
right now, all we can do is equivocally congratulate the Vancouver Murder.
Yes.
But way to pull it out at the end. And I just heard the rolling whistle. I believe that means that makes it official. Oh, I'm getting it. Yes.
And we do see the 174-171. We heard the rolling whistle.
That's it. The officials are leaving the track. That is it. The Vancouver Murder upsetting rankings against Bridgetown. 174-171 final. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to end your day.
What a way to end my day. Now, there's still more games to happen here at hashtag Big O 2019. But, you know, if you were watching this game the whole way through, if you were seeing the amazing play that all of these players were putting out here, give them your love. Flag it, hashtag Big O 2019. Tell them, I got to see this amazing game. I got to see your amazing play. It was a nail biter right down to the end. I got no fingernails left. That's it.
A glass case of emotion, 100%. And I cannot wait to see the outcome on the next update for MRDA rankings, because this particular game, crucial in addition to other MRDA gameplay, and we had points per jam. Just looking at the comparison.
Look at that. It was Vancouver. They would be shut out for a couple of jams, and then they'd absolutely put some points on the board, and they did it at the end. They pulled it out at the end to make it happen. Not every jam shows on the points per jam, because there were lots of jams and they disappear off the edge. Ultimately, Edge will throw the penalties up here just for the stat nerds so that you can confirm. You can see 4 foul outs from Bridgetown, so they were playing right at the edge of capability there. One of whom fouled out with an actual extra penalty over the top.
So that means that there was a double on there somewhere. And,
every murder player available right at the end.
Able to stay available in the rotation. So it really tells that story. And, well, that last jam, that's all. I can't say we're often rendered speechless, Biggie.
Well, we're talking about an awful lot for being speechless, but seriously, that was great.
We are announcers.
Yeah, it's true. All right, I'm Biggie Talls.
And I'm Beautiful Banshee. And come back for Rose City versus Montreal at 8 o'clock.
Thank you.